I want to let you know that the meeting is being recorded, and we will post it later on the singingriverretirement.com website for anyone who wasn't able to join us tonight. I want to also let you know there is a chat feature to the Zoom call. If you click down on the bottom of your screen in the little chat box, there's a group chat feature to the call. If you have a question during the session, post it in the chat, turn your video on, turn your mic on. We need to be a little bit careful of having too many folks talking at once. Zoom can only handle one speaker at a time. So everybody's mics are muted at the moment. But certainly if you have questions or as we get going, feel free to add a question to the chat or turn your video on, raise your hand, unmute your mic, and we'll hopefully have open communication here. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes and see if we have anybody else who wants to join. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and when I share my screen, I can't see the chat box anymore, but Troy's going to keep an eye on that for us and alert me if there's questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to record this so that people can see it later on?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, this Zoom call will be recorded and will be uploaded to singingriverretirement.com website.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now. Can everyone see that? I can't see anyone's face except Troy's. Is my screen shared, Troy? It is? Okay. Okay. All right, well then I will get started. Thank you again to everyone for joining us. This is, I apologize for not being able to be down there with you in person this year, but for obvious reasons, that just wasn't a good idea. So hopefully this will do for at least for now. I want to give you an update on what's been going on this past year with the retirement plan, and then I'll open it up for questions and answer any questions you might have. We do this meeting in November because we issued the October 1 valuation report for the plan in November, and so that report was just issued and presented to Judge Bell, and I'll be showing that to you, and we'll also be going over the expenses for the year. You've seen some of these slides before. So this is our annual checkup for the retirement plan. I'm going to pause here on this screen for just a moment. I've added here both my and Troy's direct dial telephone numbers. I know that in the past there's been some difficulty in reaching us via phone, and so I wanted everyone to have these phone numbers that will take you directly to our office lines. I'm going to leave that up for just a moment. Some of these slides you've seen before. The 403B plan for the hospital is you put your own contributions in, you get your own money out. That's the way a 403B plan works. Everybody in the plan has their own pot of money, and everybody walks away with their own contributions plus investment earnings. This retirement plan is different in that we have one big pot of money. We have employee contributions, we have hospital contributions, we have investment earnings, we have settlement payments. All of those are in one trust fund, and everybody gets a piece of that fund. In that retirement fund, we have money that we have currently invested, and then we also have future settlement payments that are expected to come from the hospital. On a projected basis, we have just over $167 million to pay benefits from the plan. That includes both what we currently have invested and what we expect to receive in future settlement payments. The liabilities of the plan is the money that is expected to be paid out. We currently have 798 participants in pay status. We have 419 participants who are still employed. We have 168 participants who have left employment and have not yet reached eligibility, but they still have benefits due them. And then we're still looking for 497 non-vested terminated folks who still have funds, their own money in the plan that they are due a refund. With this valuation, we are sitting at our projected assets and our projected liabilities. We're sitting at 94% funded on a projected basis. The court mandates that we stay within 90 to 110% funded. We have to stay within that corridor. If we drop below 90%, then the court could potentially order another benefit adjustment to bring us back to 100% funded. Our investments struggled this year with the pandemic. We dipped at the end of March, but we're bouncing back nicely. As of October 1, we're sitting at 94%. I'm hoping to see that number improve over the course of the coming year. But as it stands with this valuation, we're 94% funded, so there will be no recommendation on my part to the court to make adjustments to benefits at this time. I'm going to stop there for just a moment and see if there are any questions.
Tracy, this is Glenn Bollner. I was wondering if I missed the beginning, but I was wondering if someone left without being vested, what is the process to find out if there's money owed to them?
They can contact us. We are reaching out to non-vested terminated participants to try to find them. We sent out a mailing recently, and several of those were returned with bad addresses. But if you know of someone who thinks they might potentially have some money left over in this plan, by all means, have them contact us. We will look into it, and if they're due, if they're one of those 497 people that we're looking for, then we will make sure they get their money.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Tracy.
And to further answer Glenn's question, Glenn, all they need to do is contact us and make the request, and then we can take care of all the research and paperwork from there.
All right, thank you.
Tracy.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Linda Loper. Is there any way that there would be a list of these people that still have money, that in case we knew who they were or knew of them, that we could help you find them?
Certainly, we have the list. We know who the 497 people are that we are looking for. We have contemplated publishing, making public that list. There's privacy issues though, and I can't make it public without permission. But it's a good idea and something to consider. I could potentially ask the court for permission to release a list.
The judge could do that?
Yes, yes. He would have to give me permission. I would not feel comfortable just because of folks' privacy,
Right.
just releasing a list of names. I'd love to though. If you know anyone who thinks they might be on that list, have them, by all means, have them contact us. We really tried this year to reach out to folks, and I was really disappointed that we didn't find more of these folks that we're looking for.
Has the hospital made any contributions to the retirement fund like they were supposed to?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, all settlement payments due thus far have been made. All payments have been made timely.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, this is Cindy Alman. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I was late signing on. So, what are we talking about right now?
Well, we just got started. You haven't missed much, and the meeting is being recorded, so you can go back at a later time and view what you've missed. We just got started talking about the funded status of the plan and the fact that as of this valuation date, we're sitting at 94% funded, and
Good.
so no recommendation this year for any adjustments to benefits.
Good. Well, you had projected that when we went to court earlier this year,
Yes,
that we
ma'am.
would be above 90%.
Yes. Yes, I was hopeful even in June. I was worried in March. I won't lie. When the stock market dipped at the end of March, we dropped below 90%. We were at 87 as of April 1st with the stock market drop, and I had no choice but to report that to Judge Bell, and he called the hearing for June. But even by June, we had bounced back, and even with the April 1, even though we dipped below 90, we were mid-year. We were hoping it was just a temporary dip. So even with that, I did not recommend taking any sort of action based on that. I just wanted him to be aware of it. I wanted the participants to be aware of it. And to be honest, I mean, sitting at 94%, 94 is not 100. 94% means we still have some catching up to do with some on our investments. So we've still got our work cut out for us, but we're certainly okay for right now.
I remember in one of our court dates, and I don't remember how far back this was, but it was brought out once somebody made the question or made a comment regarding one of the investments being in timber, and it was something that you weren't quite aware of. Can you bring us up to date on that? Sure.
Part of the fund is well diversified. We have over $100 million in the trust fund right now, and that money is diversified among many different types of investments: equities, bonds, and then what are called alternative investments, which are meant to be sort of well, I mean, they're what they say they are. They're alternative investments. They're meant to be an alternative to bonds or an alternative to stocks. Timber was an alternative investment that the plan was invested in when I came on board, and it was something that even the judge asked me about at one point at one of the hearings. You're right, and it's something that kind of catches the eye because it's unusual, and it certainly caught my eye when I came on as to why are we invested in timberland. And over the past couple of years, I've learned more about it and have seen that it has been a good alternative to some of the other investments that we have, and it is performing quite well. And so, but that said, we are a little bit heavy in alternatives, and so I'm looking to trim that back over the next couple of years. We're staying with the timberland investment, but we're over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to trim down to about half of what it is now. And then the other half will go back into more traditional type investments.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You can keep track of where the money is invested. Every month when I post to the website what's called the Marks Market update, and that gives a listing of every single piece of our investment portfolio, and you can see month to month where the money is invested and how well it's doing, or how not well it's doing in some months.
Okay. Do you anticipate this continuing to be on the positive side, or what is your feeling on this? I mean, I know that's not, it's just going to be a shot in the dark, but I mean, how do you feel like we're going to continue doing?
Well, it's a good question, and you're right. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't foresee what could potentially happen in the future. And, you know, who could have, you know, standing in front of you all a year ago, who knew what 2020 was going to bring, for heaven's sake.
Right.
And so, but, you know, that was 2020's been a heck of a ride. But we weathered it. We're okay. And so I feel like we are well diversified and well invested. We have 2 independent investment consultants who advise me. The decisions all rest with me. And that's why I have 2 independent investment advisors giving me their opinions on what we should and shouldn't be invested in. I am on the phone with them at least every other week talking about this stuff, and monitoring them literally week by week to see how they're doing, see what potential shifts we need to make. I feel pretty good about the position that we're sitting in. I don't feel like there's anything that we're not doing that we should be doing. The investment consultants have explained to me that the stock market basically the stock market looks well into the future, and it had already discounted the effects of the election. It's already discounting for the potential vaccine that hopefully is around the corner and soon to come. And so I think that we're going to be okay.
Okay.
The election results, it looks like we're going to have they're calling a divided government, because it looks like the GOP will retain control of the Senate, and with a Democratic president and Democratic House, we've got some balance there. Stock market likes balance. There's also a tremendous amount of cash sitting on the sidelines, essentially, that's been sitting there during the pandemic. I think that once a vaccine is made available and that we start to get back to some semblance of normal, I think that we're going to see some nice gains in the market. And what I'm trying to do is position us so that when we have those market gains, we're in it and we're participating and we're riding that wave back up.
Okay.
One of the things, I'll just add to Tracy's comments real quick for you, Cindy. For lack of a better way to say this, one of the things that the stock market likes is they like a deadlocked Congress. They like a Congress that can't change rules for businesses very quickly. And so when you have a Senate controlled by the Republicans and a House and an administration controlled by the Democrats, it makes it difficult for rules for businesses to change rapidly, if that makes sense. And so the stock market likes that. And so coming into this new year and new administration, the stock market overall likes what's happening so far.
Okay.
Tracy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Jermaine Weldon, and I have a question about just on this, on the investments. You're the fiduciary. So did you choose these two investment advisors, or who chose these two investment advisors?
The two investment advisors that consult with me, one is a firm called Fiduciary Vest out of Atlanta. They were the investment advisor to the hospital board before I came on,
Okay.
and to the special fiduciary before I came on board. So they were here before me. And about 2 years ago, I can't remember, was it somewhere between 1 and 2 years ago, I did, with the approval of the court, I did a request for proposals to look for an additional advisor. And so the second advisor that I hired is a firm called FCI, and they're based here in Kansas City. And I didn't specifically choose them for that reason, but it is a nice perk that Brian Parrott, who is the newer advisor for me, is here locally for me. I can meet with him in person. We met before COVID, but so we're not getting together in person now. But he is local, and I had the advantage of having worked with him on some other pension plans as well, and so I knew his track record, and I had seen.
So the alternative investments were probably from the previous investment advisor. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Well, let me ask you this other question. Are these two investment advisors working with you operating under an investment policy statement, where you have actually a statement that's been designed of the portfolio allocation, or are they just calling you here and there, giving you different recommendations? No,
it's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. We have an investment policy statement that has been, it was in place prior to my coming on board. I had some recommendations to change a few small things about it. I presented it to Judge Bell about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and so yes, there absolutely is an investment policy statement. And I believe the investment policy statement is included on the quarterly reports that are uploaded to the website. So I believe
I was going to ask that if it's posted, because I haven't looked at the quarterly reports and I have not seen an investment policy statement, but you think it is posted on the website?
I do. I think Fiduciary Vest puts the quarterly reports, the quarterly asset reports together, and I believe they include that at the end of their reports. I'll check after this call, and if it's not on there, then I'll make sure that it gets uploaded to the website.
Well, good. I appreciate that.
Any other questions before we move on? Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay. The little box around your name lit up, and so I thought you were.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to move now then to show you the valuation report that was presented to Judge Bell this week. I'm going to move rather quickly through this because we've already talked about kind of the bottom line of this valuation. So I'll kind of move quickly through it, but then if you have any questions at all, we can certainly spend as much time on it as we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, I just want to say on the website, SingingRiverRetirement.com, under the financial tab, if you hover over the financial tab with your cursor, there's 3 different things that come up: mark-to-market summaries, quarterly reports, and investment policy and agreement. So it is listed there as a separate piece, just so you know.
Thank you. Thanks for checking. Okay, so this is kind of a little bit more detail of the information that we just talked about. As I mentioned before, we have 419 participants still employed. We have 798 in pay status, 168 vested, terminated, and 497 folks that we're still looking forward to return contributions to.
I do money. I wonder if Hannah's one of them. I think she got her money back that she put into.
Again, we've got $178.7 million in liability. This is how that liability, how those numbers break down into the different groups. As you can see, we're trying to find those non-vested terminated folks. We're trying to get them paid out. The market value of the trust currently, as of October 1, was just over $100 million. We've got 103 million. 97 million was the magic number to stay above 90%. And so thankfully we've got a nice cushion there. So currently we have covered just under 60% of our liabilities. But when we factor in the present value of future settlement payments, we have another 64 million in present value of future settlement payments. So that's how we get to the 93.5 or 94% funded as of this valuation. There's a lot of numbers on this screen. I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit bigger. This is our cash flow projection. This shows from now for the next 30 years what we project is going to happen with this plan. The 1,385 participants, this does not include our non-vested terminated folks. Currently, we're paying out about $12.5 million per year in benefit payments. We have expected contributions coming in of anywhere from 4.2 to 5.7, and then they're going to table off at 4.5 million per year. So between the contributions that are coming in and our investment earnings, we're going to make about 12 to 13 million dollars per year in benefit payments over the next several years. And then eventually those payments are going to start to decrease as our number of participants decreases and the future retirement payments are lower in future years than they are now. But you can see on this page, because we're only 94% funded, we're not 100% funded. When we get down here 27 years from now, when we get down here, we're still making $6 million a year in payments, and we've only got $5 million left. So because we're only 94% funded now, 27 years from now is when we could potentially have an issue. That's why the goal is to be 100% funded. And the hope is that over the next several years, we will outpace our assumption of 6%, and we will get ourselves back on track to be 100 or more % funded.
What does that mean, Tracy, the outpacing it? I don't understand this stuff, and I'm trying to.
I understand. What I mean by that is this projection assumes that our investments are going to earn 6% net of all of our expenses.
Okay.
Which really means we've got to earn about 6.5% in order to keep pace with our expenses as well. Okay. And so what I'd like to see over the next few years is that we can do better than 6%, that we can do better than 6.5%, that we can have a few years in the next 10 where we beat our assumption. And
okay.
that will then swing the pendulum back from 94% and get us back up to 100%.
Okay, I follow you now. Thank you.
I have
And
a question.
just to add to that for you, Cindy, and that usually happens. The thing that you have to remember is when we're looking at these numbers today, all we can look at is the numbers we know today.
Right.
We don't, you know, like Tracy always says, we don't have the crystal ball, but we do feel good about the stock market and we do feel good about the potential for returns. So we do believe that over a period of time, we'll be able to make that up. But as of today, we have to report for you what the numbers are today. So there's truthfulness in everything that we show you, and there's nothing being hidden. You need to know what those numbers are today. And of course, we talk about what we hope they are in 5, 10, or 15 years to get us back to 100% funded. But just for openness and honesty, we just have to tell you, but here's where we are today.
Gotcha.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea how old the youngest person is that is still invested in this retirement?
I do, and I'll show you that chart here in just a second. It's in this report.
Okay, you were talking about 27 years out, and I'm thinking, good grief.
Well, but I don't know if I'll be around 27 years from now. We'll see. There may be another fiduciary by then. But if you look here at just the number of participants, we'll look at these folks in a second on an age and service chart. But 27 years from now, there's still 610 people in this plan. So that shows we do have some young people. But I've got a chart that I'll show you here in just a second, and I'll give you a little more detail. Okay. This page of the report just kind of shows us it's the history since I came on board. In 2018, when the benefit reduction happened in May, we were at 99.1%. Our assets have struggled these last couple of years, and we've dropped. Again, we just went through that, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make that up and get back up to 100% funded. This is our history of returns. The 2019 return there of 1.4% is a little bit misleading. That is the year that the escrow account was paid out, and there was miscommunication about that escrow account and how those funds were earmarked. And the money that came in from escrow was not what we originally understood was going to be payable to the plan. And that's nobody's fault, but essentially we didn't get the money from escrow that we thought we were going to get. And so those missing funds just got rolled in with our investment losses. And so that hurt us in 2019. 2020, we're looking at, all of the effects that have happened this year. I'm hoping that going forward, we kind of get back onto a more even keel. I know that already November, I heard from both of the investment consultants this morning. November, the returns are already starting to bounce back, and so I'm hopeful about that.
Tracy, when you talk about the, can you go back to that screen? When you talk about the escrow account, is that the account where the hospital was setting aside that money that they were supposed to start paying back?
Yes, and they did that. They made all of the scheduled payments to the escrow account. What was not communicated clearly was the payments for the attorneys that I understood to be funded for in a separate account. I thought that the escrow account was just for the plan and that the attorney fees were in a separate account, and they were not. And so when the attorneys got paid after the settlement was finalized, that money came out of the escrow account, and it just is what it is. So, but, and that just means we've got our work cut out for us in investment returns. So.
Wow.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Which attorneys were they? You know which ones they were?
I do not. There were several attorneys involved in the settlement and all of that litigation. All of that was started before I came on, and by the time I came on, it was almost all finished.
So
So
they were the attorneys. Were they the attorneys for the retirement fund?
I'm sorry, which attorneys?
I said, were they the attorneys for the retirement fund?
Some of them were. It was all of the attorneys on both sides.
Yeah, and I don't have a breakdown of who got paid how much. I don't know.
Okay, I just wondered which attorneys it was.
When you're talking about the payment to the attorneys, Tracy, how much in dollars was that paid out to them? What was in the escrow account that was paid over to the plan in 2019?
If I remember right, it was a little over $3 million.
Jeez.
So
And it was paid to those that agreed to be part of the settlement. Some attorneys signed on, some didn't.
true.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't anything underhanded or anything like that. It was all part of the agreement. It just wasn't clearly communicated which money was where. And when the dust settled, it just was what it was. And so, we just kind of folded it in and moved forward. So
Did that include the hospital attorneys?
again, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I know Troy just said it was for both sides, and that's why I was wondering.
Well, it was whoever signed in on part of that, as part of that settlement. We didn't see we just assumed that attorneys from both sides, everybody that agreed to the settlement agreed, the hospital agreed to the payments, the attorney signed off on it. Everybody who was part of that initial settlement, the attorneys that were involved in that got paid out of that.
Okay. All right.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
But I couldn't.
So we only gained 1.4% of that payoff of that year's escrow account. Is that?
No, that's not what that means. What that means is that I treated the funds that I expected to get that we didn't get. Those were treated as though they were an investment loss. And so it tends to make it look like our investments didn't perform, but in reality, it's because of the escrow fluky thing that happened with that. And so for the 2019 calendar year, our investments were actually up 19%. We had a really good calendar year 19.
Okay.
And I expect them to be up in this last quarter of 2020 as well.
Okay.
But that's why that number looks lower, because it was treating that as an investment loss when really it was not.
Okay. What does where it says underneath the graph, the box of numbers there, it says actuarial 5-year smooth value. What is the 5-year smooth? What is it? I see smoothed in here a couple of times, and I was wondering what that word means.
Right. What that is it's a calculation of the assets that only accounts for 20% of a gain or a loss each year. And what it's intended to do is, the stock market, I'm going to use my hands here, the stock market, our market value of assets can be very volatile. It can be, 2019, we had a 19% rate of investment return for the year. You can have really good years and really not so great years. And so there's a lot of volatility in the market value. What a smoothed value does is it says, okay, we're only going to recognize 20% of a gain or loss each year. And we're going to basically smooth the value of the assets over a 5-year time frame. Linda, can you mute your mic, please?
Right there at the end. The guy. Big guy, the one with the right.
There we go. I wasn't sure I could do that.
So to kind of help answer that question, the asset smoothing, it takes the super highs and super lows out and gives us a little bit more of an even keel look at what we expect to do over a long period of time.
Gotcha.
And
Almost like you're averaging it out.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I was just about to say that it takes an average of the returns, and the reason I asked that to be included in this report was because just as at the end of March, when we dropped below 90% funded, if that had happened at the end of September instead of the end of March, we could have been looking at a potential benefit reduction because we dropped below 90%. And so what I wanted to do was add this smooth value in kind of as a tool going forward to potentially look and say, let's not necessarily make an adjustment based on one really bad year or one really good year. I don't want to have one really good year where we pop up above 110% and we say, oh, well, let's increase benefits. Well, that was one really good year and it was a temporary effect. And the next year we're right back down. So it's a way of averaging the returns, and it's just for informational purposes, really. It's so that if we do get into a situation where we have to make decisions, it just gives us another piece of information to look at.
Does that kind of give us a buffer when we're looking at the numbers?
Yes, that's the intention of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, when it comes time to make a decision, will the judge look at the smoothed value or will he only look at the market value? I don't know, but I want to be able to give him as much information as we can.
Okay.
I'm going to scroll down here past. And this report will be posted to the website as well. So if I'm skipping over pages that you are really interested in, this is the summary of information that someone was asking about a moment ago. This is a breakdown of the age brackets and the number of people that we have in various age brackets. This is our 798 folks in pay status. We've got almost 100 people over the age of 80.
Wow.
65 to 75 is our biggest age group. And then we've got some beneficiaries that are even younger than that. And we've got some early retirees as well. In our 168, what we call vested terminated members, these are folks who've left employment, but they're not eligible yet for benefits. We've got 5 people who are eligible for benefits that we can't find and that we need to get into pay status. But then these are the folks in those age brackets, and you can see we've got some folks as young as 30, all the way up to 65. So presumably the folks in this group here will be reaching retirement age in the next few years and will start receiving payments. And then still working at the hospital, here's our 419 folks who are still working. We've got folks as young as, we've got 11 people in the 30 to 34 age bracket, which is our youngest group of people. So, 27 years from now, these folks are going to be just getting to retirement age. Does that answer the question earlier about the age brackets of the participants?
I'm not sure who asked that.
I can't remember either. I'm sorry.
I asked. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
I have another question. The people on the graph before this that are working, they're not they're not still paying into the retirement fund, are they?
No one is
At all?
currently paying in.
Okay, that terminated, and so these had to go to that 403 or whatever. But then they reach retirement, they will be able to draw their retirement out.
They will, but their benefits will only be based on their service up until the end of 2014 when the plan was frozen. So they are eligible. These folks will be eligible for a benefit, but it will only be based on service up to that point. They won't be eligible for a benefit based on their entire career of service as others have been.
What she means by that, Linda, is when we figure the pension benefit is based upon your total years of service and your annual pay. And so the people and you have to work, as you know, 10 years or more to get vested in the pension plan. But for somebody who, say, started working in 2012 and the pension froze at 2014, even though they worked there for 10 years or longer, and they're going to be vested, the payment for their benefit is only going to be based on the 2 years that they worked in the pension plan time, if that makes sense. So they won't get payment from the pension based on 20 years of service. They'll get pension payment based on 2 years of service, because that's how long they worked under the pension plan arrangement.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The last page of this report just shows a reconciliation of our participant counts. We had 33 people retire during the year. We lost 22 retirees this year. 2 of those had spouses that are getting spousal benefits now. And then we paid out returns of contributions to 9 active participants, 3 vested terminated folks, and then we found 62 of our non-vested terminated folks. I'm disappointed in this number. I'm hoping to find more of those folks this year. Go ahead, Cindy.
What is the benefits expire?
Oh, that would have been someone who, if was receiving a benefit over a certain time period only. And so if someone chose like a 10-year certain in life and then passed away, their beneficiary would only get benefits up until the end of that certain period. And then once that period ends, then their benefits expire.
Gotcha.
There's not very many of those. That's why we only saw 1.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to flip over to expenses here unless there are any other questions about the report. Okay, this is where I keep track of all of the money that gets spent in the plan other than paying benefits to participants. It costs money to run a pension plan, $100 million pension fund. By court order, you have to have a special fiduciary. We've got to have somebody administering the plan. We've got to have an audit. We've got to have an attorney, and we've got to have our investment advisors, and all of those things come with a cost. These first 3 green columns here show what was being paid out during the years ending in 17, 18, and 19. As you can see, when I came on board, one of my #1 goals was to get a handle on our expenses. we were just flat out spending more than we needed to for
Yeah.
certain things. And so we took a really hard look at every, and I still do to this day. I don't want $1 going out of this plan that doesn't have to. Every dollar that we can save in expenses is another dollar that we have to pay benefits. And so it was my goal to cut expenses in the plan by at least $500,000 a year. And we've done that. I'm pleased to say we've done that. So this last green column here was the year ending in 19. These two pink and green columns here in the middle, this is what I was targeting for the year ending 9/30, and this is what we actually spent. So a little bit more than I was hoping to spend, but we're still well within what I think is reasonable to be spending. I'm happy to talk about any of these expenses as we go along. The investment advisory fees are a little bit difficult to pin down. What I had in advisory versus management, some of those got shifted around a little bit. But in the end, we're still close to what I anticipated we would spend for investment advice. So we're just under 1.2 million in fees for the plan. I'm hoping next year, this last column to the right, I'm hoping that we can trim those even more. And the bulk of that I hope to come in investment advisory and management fees.
So Tracy, I see the investment advisory fees and one is roughly half of the other, but what is the investment management fee, which is $679,000? Is that going to the advisor? Where is that going?
It's, again, the independent consultants are Fiduciary Vest and FCI. They are compensated for their investment advice. Some of the funds are invested with individual fund managers, and those managers get a fee as well. And the idea when you have an actively managed fund is that the investment return for those funds is supposed to be more than enough to pay the management fee as well. Basically, the managers are supposed to be paying for themselves. But I show that here only just because I want to be transparent about everything that we're spending. We are spending money on active management. We have some of our funds in low cost mutual funds, and we have some of our funds with active managers. And again, it's something I keep a very close eye on. I don't mind paying for active management as long as we're getting the return that makes it worth it. And that's where we have our independent advisors coming in, marking those managers against benchmarks, making sure that basically that it's worth it. Again, I don't mind paying for active management, but we need to see the return that justifies it. And again, I want to be as transparent as I can about what we're paying for.
So you're paying the $59,000 and the $112,000 to the investment advisors who are giving you direction, but then you're paying $679,000 to the actual fund managers where they're doing the active management. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And what I'd like to do, if this is get this 679 down to about 400,000. I would like to replace some of the active managers with lower cost not alternative investments, but different lower cost investments that will bring the same return but have lower fees.
Yeah, well, there are investment advisors in your area, in the Kansas City and St. Louis area, who are very good investment advisors who do use low-cost funds and have good performance.
Right.
And they're not paying for active management.
Right.
And they're in your area. I mean, and these are big names. They're all in your area.
Yeah, certainly. And that's the direction that I want to go. What I want to do is do that wisely. I don't want to just move everything lock, stock, and barrel all at one time. But both Fiduciary Vest and FCI know that that's my goal, is to move us away from active management and into lower cost funds where we can realize the same return for lower fees. That is absolutely my goal. We just have to be prudent about how we do it.
Well, no, you have to act as a fiduciary and do the same thing as you did before, where you do a request for proposal, and then they submit their proposals and what their total fee structure is and what their performance has been.
Right. Yes. That is all I have in terms of presentation for the fund. Can I answer any other questions about anything that we've gone over so far? Okay. All of this information will be posted on the website. I'm gonna stop.
The report and the video all will be posted.
Yes. Yeah, this video, as well as everything that's been shown here, will be on our website.
And you'll have access to the full report. So any of those pages that we went through quickly, if you want to see closer details of them, you'll have access to all of them. It takes us a couple of days to get it all uploaded, but it will be there.
I also wanted to spend just a few minutes making sure that everyone received the information regarding the litigation with KPMG and Transamerica. If you're a retiree in pay status, you should have received that with your last either direct deposit advice or your last retirement check. If you are not a current retiree, then you should have received that via regular mail from me. I want to make sure, I want to answer any questions that anyone might have about that litigation and what your options are.
What are our options? Okay. That's two words. It's hard to say together.
Right. Well, essentially, when the major litigation was going on, the lawsuit with the hospital and the settlement negotiations and all of that, there were lawsuits pending against KPMG, the former plan auditor, and Transamerica, the former plan administrator. The previous special fiduciary filed a lawsuit with each of those parties on behalf of the entire plan. And then individual participants also filed lawsuits against KPMG and Transamerica at the same time. All of that litigation was stayed while the major litigation with the hospital was being sorted out. Once that settlement was finalized last year and all of that major litigation was over, then the door opened back up for these other smaller lawsuits against KPMG and Transamerica. So then those suits got to move forward. Well, this past February, in federal court, the judge said, as long as the special fiduciary has a lawsuit pending on behalf of the plan, individual participants cannot sue. You can't do both. You can't have the special fiduciary sue on behalf of the plan and have the individual participants suing. And so the federal judge said only the special fiduciary can sue unless she dismisses. And so I pursued those cases with KPMG and Transamerica. What I was hoping to do was reach a settlement with them on behalf of the plan that could have potentially brought additional money in to the plan for the benefit of everyone. That did not happen. I was not able to reach a settlement with them. And so I went to Judge Bell and asked his permission to drop my lawsuits on behalf of the plan so that I could essentially step out of the way and allow individual plan participants to then sue on their own behalf. And the reason for that, the reason I felt like that was the right thing to do and Judge Bell agreed with me, is because individual plan participants can file their lawsuits on what's known as a contingency basis, where the law firms will pay the fees and the costs to pursue that litigation at no cost to the participants. And then if the lawsuit is successful, then the attorneys are paid out of whatever they are successful in procuring for their individual plaintiffs. As the special fiduciary, I could not get a law firm to take me on contingency, to take me on behalf of the plan on a contingency basis, which would have meant that we would have been spending money from the trust fund in order to litigate against KPMG and Transamerica with no guarantee of success. And I didn't feel that that was the right thing to do. And Judge Bell agreed with me. And so he gave me permission to dismiss my lawsuits, but he wanted me to make every effort that I could to inform all of you about your right to then pick up that mantle and pursue it on your own. And so that's what every vested plan participant has the right to do, is sign on with their own counsel. There were a couple of law firms listed that I believe are taking participants on contingency. You can use one of those. You can use anyone you want. But the window to do that is fairly narrow. It's kind of questionable when the statute of limitations runs out, but there's not a tremendous amount of time. And so I want everyone to be aware, if you choose to pursue that litigation, to get in touch with one of those law firms or the lawyer of your choice to file and pursue that on your own.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. The downside is that only those participants who pursue it could potentially see payoff from that. I had really hoped to get a more global solution and something that would benefit everyone, but I just wasn't able to do that. Are there any other questions I can answer tonight?
I don't have any more. Thank you. I appreciate it very much, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing the Zoom. Technology's great.
I was a little nervous, to be honest. I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but we've had a good group of folks tonight and a lot of good questions, so I appreciate that.
As far as like you meeting with us every year to cut down plan costs, I have no problem doing this.
Yeah, if it works out, we may continue to do it this way.
Because I know the last time you were down, we didn't have very many people show up. And I just, and I know there's not a lot on the Zoom call tonight, and hopefully they will come back and look at the video to see what's going on with their money. But, to save money, to save the travel expenses and everything, I'm sure you would rather travel to a nice warm island with sand and cabana boys or whatever than to come to Mississippi. But anyway, this, to me, if this is a way to save money for the plan, I would not have a problem doing this at all anytime during the year that you need to meet with us.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I agree with you, particularly if there's something that pops up during the year that is generating a lot of questions, and we think, we might need to do this again. I agree with you. I think this is ideal.
Well, I think it's, we're trying to think of ways and come up with ways, and I know you are really trying to help save the plan as much money as possible. Do it this way so that the plan can save that, what little bit. Every nickel and dime counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
You're absolutely right.
But I really do appreciate it, Tracy,
Thank
taking the
you.
time out, and Troy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I have maybe a reminder. If you do this again, I know you sent out the information early on, but if you could send out a email, say 3 days before, to remind people, maybe we would have more people join us.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we could do that.
I put it in my phone so the alarm would go off and I wouldn't forget, but yeah.
Me too, Linda, me too.
There were 12 of us on here, so there's a lot more people in the plan that would benefit.
Sure. And I hope some people do come back later and watch the Zoom. I hope it's not too boring for folks who didn't join us live. But I also want to thank whoever had the idea last year to send out notices through Fifth Third Bank, who's our custodian cutting the retirement checks. Those notices that came to you via your checks and direct deposit advice regarding that last letter that came from me, Fifth Third did that free of charge. They didn't even charge us to do that. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
I was very pleased. They said essentially, we don't want to do it for you every month, but once or twice a year we don't mind. So that was a nice thing that they did for us.
Yeah. So many people don't realize that there is a way that you are communicating with us on a monthly basis through the website. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. And so, I've tried texting several people yesterday to remind them of this tonight. And they're like, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about it. I said, well, if you go to the website and read Tracy's update for us that she sends out every month, and we know already that in November she's going to bring forth the message, a message to us regarding what's transpired in the last year and what she's projecting for the next year that's going to happen with our money. And so I think it's imperative that we need to remind everybody to check that website every month.
I agree with you. I try to get the word out as much as I can. If you put your email address on the website, you'll get an automatic email anytime I post something to it. So no, but okay, I agree. The more we can do to get the word out, the better.
I only have 25,000 emails unread on my I think so. I'm hoping so much of them are garbage, but I know they're not, so I can't go in and just delete all of those. But anyway, I appreciate it. And if that's all, I'm going to sign off. I really appreciate the information tonight and you taking the time to explain my trivial questions anyway.
No, you're fine. You asked good questions. I appreciate it. I do see a question. Oh, yeah, down in the chat. Going back to the $3 million we paid for attorneys, I want to know who we paid and where in the legal paperwork we should pay it instead of Singing River Health System. Is there other litigation costs coming? Okay, and Troy's answer, it was all part of the original settlement. Singing River Health System did pay it. So the money that the person's asking a question that we were talking about a little bit ago, the money that was in escrow that went for attorney fees, that was all part of the settlement negotiation. It was, well, the only piece that was miscommunicated was where that money was being allocated and split. And that was just a miscommunication. It wasn't anything that it wasn't anything new or anything that nefarious that went on with that. It just wasn't communicated to me properly. And so, but it was all part of the settlement that was negotiated with the hospital on behalf of the plan. So, and to answer the other question, is there other litigation costs coming? Not if I can help it. I do report to the court every month. We have 2 lawsuits pending against the plan, alleging benefits owed that were not paid. On that expense sheet that I showed a little bit ago, we do have a little bit of cost for the attorney that represents me on behalf of the plan. That's Charles McHale. He is representing me on behalf of the plan in those 2 lawsuits. We shouldn't see any additional costs coming out of the KPMG Transamerica litigation, again, because I'm dismissing those suits on behalf of the plan. So hopefully that answers your question about litigation costs.
Okay.
Did somebody actually not get paid? You know, for fact?
Somebody actually thinks that they're owed benefits that we're claiming they're not owed, according to the rules of the plan, but they're insisting that they are, so they've taken it to court. We feel very good about our position, but nonetheless, anybody has a right to sue anybody for anything they want to. So they can try to sue us to make us pay them more money, but we believe that they've been fairly paid already.
Are these people still getting paid a benefit or?
No, these are the two lawsuits against the plan. One is for a participant who is claiming that an additional death benefit was owed, and then someone else who's claiming that additional disability benefits were owed. And again, I don't fault someone for bringing a suit, but my position has been that all benefits that were owed by the plan have been paid by the plan. And so now it's up to the courts to look at the allegations that are being made and look at my documentation and make a determination as to whether the plan properly paid benefits. And I believe it did. So, but again, it can often take a long time for those things to wind through the courts. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.